So let me let you start first. What are your key matchups to this NBA Finals?
Yeah, I think the first one, we mentioned it in a prior segment, but it's gonna be the Celtics defending Mavericks 2 star players. I mean, I think Brown on Luka and Holiday on Kyrie are gonna be 2 of the most important matchups to watch. I mean, obviously, the Mavericks need both of their best players to play at a high level in order to win this series, and if the
Mhm.
Celtics can do anything to slow them down, I think that will give them a real chance to win it. Beyond that, though, I think I mentioned it earlier too that PJ Washington and Derrick Jones, they're going to be spending time on the Celtics' 2 best players. It's not going
Yeah,
to be easy. I mean, we've seen PJ Washington was guarding Karl Anthony Towns. Guarding Jason Tatum is a different story. You know, Derrick Jones Jr., he's been great throughout the playoffs on defense. He's had to guard pretty much everybody from Anthony Edwards to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Paul George in that first round. I mean, he's defended the best player throughout the playoffs, and now he's going to be tasked with guarding Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as well. So he's going to have to
yeah,
continue to play at a high level. And then another one that I wanted to mention was the bigs on both teams. I mean, on one end is for
yes,
yeah, is the Mavericks. They got 2 guys that are great rim protectors and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. We're gonna have to see them get out on the perimeter a little bit more. Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford
Mhm.
are more perimeter based, and we're gonna have to see those big rim protectors get out and defend that three-point line a little bit more than we've seen. And I think Lively has proven that he can do it. Gafford, not to that extent, but he might have to show a little bit more. And then I think it's important that the Mavericks also have a guy like Maxi Kleber who is back and healthy again because he is a guy that can get out to that three-point line, and I think he matches up well with a guy like Al Horford when he's in the game. On the other end of it, when the Mavericks have the ball, Boston defending, we're gonna see Luka try and get guys into switches like Horford and Porzingis, just like we saw throughout his career, exactly what we saw in that Timberwolves series, getting Gobert in switches and trying to take advantage of that. He's gonna do that to Al Horford a lot. Horford has been a great defender throughout his career, but he's getting a lot older now. He's not as able to move, and he's not going to be able to keep up on the perimeter like that. Porzingis, he's a pretty good defender, but it's a different story trying to get out there and guard a guy like Luca. So I think we're going to see that a lot. Obviously, we've talked a lot about pick and roll coverage throughout the playoffs. I'm interested to see what the Celtics decide to do. Are they going to be in a drop coverage? Are they going to mix it up? If I was Joe Mazzulla, I think I would likely change it up as much as possible. Probably not blitz Luka to start, but then start blitzing him if he hits a shot or two, and then late in the game, I'm double teaming Luka basically every chance I can get, and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna make PJ Washington beat me. I'm gonna make Derrick Jones Jr. beat me. So I think in order to contain Luka a little bit, you got to mix it up, and I think in that pick and roll coverage, we're gonna have to see them try and change it up a little bit.
I think you looked at my notes because I literally have the exact matchups to watch out for, like the important matchups.
Mhm.
The only one that I don't think you said or mentioned was Holiday versus Luca. I do think we want to see Drew Holiday on Luca at some point in time in this series. I think it's going to be important because I believe there's going to be really good opportunities. This is how I'm looking at it. I think Dallas could get Boston in foul trouble more than Boston can get Dallas in foul trouble. And the reason why I say that is because Lucas and Kyrie are very good at creating fouls.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a situation where someone is going to be in foul trouble on Boston. And I'm not saying it's not going to be for Dallas either, but the way that Luca plays, someone's destined to be in foul trouble. And so that's why I had the matchup with Holiday and Luca because he's disciplined. We rarely see Holiday in foul trouble. I mean, rarely. And so we're going to see that matchup at some point in time in this series. And I think Holiday has to maintain that matchup. He cannot have Luca, have Luca shooting fall away threes. Yeah, that's fine. And he's a great player. He's going to go in from time to time. But he cannot get dominated in this matchup. And I don't think he will, but I believe that's really important. Kyrie and Brown. I do think at some point in time, I mean, it happened in the regular season. Brown will have to guard Kyrie. Kyrie's going to also have to guard Brown at some point in time, or maybe not. They might switch PJ Washington and someone on Brown. And no, those two are going to be the primary ball handlers and decision makers for Boston. So that may be the route that Dallas goes. But I will suspect at some point in time that Boston will switch and get that Brown and Kyrie matchup multiple times because he know Kyrie doesn't have the size, he know Kyrie doesn't have the length, he know Kyrie doesn't really have the defensive skills. And now Kyrie's no slouch on the defensive end, but he's not the best either. And so I think we're going to see that. And then I'm also think we're going to see Tatum and Luca at some point in time. The two best players um, on each prospective teams go at it. I do think we're going to see that matchup. And then last but not least, I think the most important by far are the bigs on both teams by far.
Yeah.
Lively, he is lively. If he can play with that adrenaline, if he can play with that the way that he plays, he gets the ball, he hustles, he attacks the paint. If he could play like that, Dallas is in great shape. Porzingis to me is going to be the key because Porzingis more so than anything is that it reminds me of Golden State back in their glory days where everyone was a threat
Yeah.
on the perimeter. Even Draymond was a threat on the perimeter. Boston has that potential. Porzingis definitely can. He has that in his arsenal. He's going to stretch the floor where he's going to make Dallas big men come out to the perimeter and defend him. Like you said before, how is Dallas going to respond to that? Because you're going to have to play Al Horford and Porzingis from the perimeter. And if Lively, if they're not ready, the bigs, if they're not ready for that, and if they really have to stay solid a little bit with Karl Anthony Towns, also they really want primarily guarding Karl Anthony Towns either. It's
Yeah.
going to be a little different because now Boston has two big men.
Yep.
They're playing with Al Horford who can shoot threes. They're playing with Porzingis who can shoot threes, and more importantly, more than Karl Anthony Towns is both of those gentlemen are willingly to go inside the paint and beat you from the perimeter and beat you from the inside as well. And so that to me is the biggest matchup throughout this whole finals is the bigs for both teams.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right there that even though they have seen guys like that with Karl Anthony Towns, it was PJ Washington that was guarding him for the most part.
Yeah.
Didn't see Lively or Gafford have to go out there in the perimeter. They were stuck guarding Gobert in the paint the whole time, which is not that much of a task compared to what you're doing
Yeah.
at Porzingis and Horford on that end of the floor. I mean, Gobert doesn't stress your defense at all. Meanwhile, Porzingis or Horford can really kill you from the perimeter and off the dribble as well. And they're both able to play make a little bit too. So I think that's going to be really key. Um, but I want to go back to what you said about some of the perimeter matchups in that even though I think these are pretty accurate what we're saying, we're going to see a lot of guys get switched.
Yeah.
Like Holiday, like you said, Brown and Tatum are going to be the primary defenders on Luca, but Holiday is going to be on him at times as well. And Derek White is as well. So I think we're going to have to see a lot of these guys, especially with the Celtics tend to switch more than the Mavericks do. I think there are going to be times where Boston is switching everything, and they're just going to trust Derek White and Drew Holiday to switch that and try and contain Luca as much as they can. So I think on that side of the ball, that's going to be really key. Derek White is a great defender. He's going to have a little bit of room to roam. He can probably sag off of guys like Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington and maybe try and help out on Luca and Kyrie when he's not guarding them. But then there's also going to be times where he's going to be the primary defender as well. So I think the Celtics have a lot of guys that they can throw at Luca and Kyrie, but it's another story to actually slow them down.